you love spy books, movies, and TV, then the Spybrary podcast is for you.
Hello and welcome to Spybrary episode 227. Today we bring you a Dead Drop 5. That's when our guest is sent behind enemy lines behind the Iron Curtain and is allowed to request 5 books from his handler. Today we welcome the man behind the writersdossier.com. If you're not familiar with the Writers Dossier, they focus on releasing previously undisclosed intel on today's thriller, mystery, crime, and suspense writers. Jeff Circle, welcome to Spybrary.
Oh, thanks, Shane. It's great to be here.
Now, I also have to thank you for your service, because not only are you an author yourself and a fine judge of good writing, you've served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I understand you worked in counterintelligence, and you've even served as a cop in South Carolina. Is that correct?
It's correct. Thank you, Shane. That's awfully kind. You're right. I joined the Army in the early 20s and ended up in Desert Storm, and later came back and I was a cop. And you hit it. Afghanistan, a lot of time there.
Well, thank you for your service. I'm interested to know how that background impacts your choices today on your Dead Drop 5. So what's your first book? What's your first pick?
Well, the first book is, and this isn't in any particular order, we'll leave that to the end. First book is Peacock and the Sparrow by I.S. Barry.
Fantastic choice. What was it about Ilana's book that you enjoyed so much?
Ilana's book nailed the authenticity. That's the thing about it. Her main character is a CIA officer working out of Bahrain. And that book, it was the dynamic between him and his station chief. I know you're a fan, and we talked about this before. His station chief, I think she nailed it. Yeah. Because people in the field can't stand management, and this guy was the classic Ivy League toad. And then she went 7th floor Langley and nailed that. You gotta think, having personal experience as a CIA officer herself, serving overseas in that capacity, she had to draw from some real life experience. So I just love the idea that you're having an inside CIA person talk about inside CIA management in that way. It was fantastic. And I'll say this. This book is unusually realistic. It's culturally immersive, and it leaves you with questions to ponder.
It does. It does. I also agree with you. It was one of my picks of 2023. It was in my top 5. Yep. I chose not to rank last year because there were just some formidable candidates. So I'm a chicken. But on reading it, when I did get to it, it was the best book that I had read up until that point that year. And much of it was that authenticity. You know, you really kind of got a feeling that you were there. There was nothing jarring in it. And for me, I really liked how I.S. Barry was able to draw upon the diplomat life and the expat life. And there's that one scene where I forget the actual quote, but she said everybody was drunk singing Rod Stewart and karaoke. You know, it's all the embassy staff. Yeah. And I thought she did a really good job of drawing that picture.
She really did. And she lived both lives. She was an officer, and then she also was overseas as a dependent. Like I said, that authenticity. I've served at the State Department at the embassy in Kabul for a number of years, and some of those things, even though it was Bahrain, that culture and that lifestyle just carries over. I mean, you want to read a real book about how it really is. This is it.
Yeah, absolutely. How would you describe it in terms of genre? Because you obviously review mystery, thriller, etc. So for someone who's not familiar with Peacock and Sparrow, how would you, or can you even classify it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because in the dossier that I do, you described it perfectly to a T. I also do a thing called the dossier endorsement. And I don't endorse everything to the degree that I do the ones that I really feel passionate about. And I did a dossier endorsement on this, and exactly like you, it's like the best thing I had read up to that point that year. And where she falls with this, I think it's a lot of those four things that I cover. There's almost a criminal element when they're talking about in town, and just the recklessness of the culture that was there, which kind of surprised me. I'm used to Dubai and Abu Dhabi and all these little nicer places, better size of town where you're walking around the souk and everything. This showed another seedy side that was really eye opening. So obviously, honestly, I'm gonna take it a little out of the thriller genre and put it more into the suspense and crime and mystery, because you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't see some things coming, and it doesn't have the typical, Jason Bourne, Jack Reacher kind of action that a thriller would have, like a Jack Harbutt. So yeah, that's where I'd go with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Jeff. And I think this is why, it's a book I recommend to people who may be not into the espionage genre per se, but this is a thriller. You will enjoy it. Yes, espionage is the backdrop, but you will still enjoy it.
I agree.
Excellent. Is there another book like it? Could you compare it with one?
Oh, that's a really good question. Oh, wow. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And Alana will probably be happy with that.
Yeah.
I was surprised at the setting, Bahrain. It's the kind of thing where you go into something and you don't want to have to learn things, but you enjoy it when you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think of all the places she could have set the Arab Spring. Let's go with Libya, even Morocco, Egypt, all the the usual suspects. She went Bahrain. Because she'd been there. She spent a lot of time there. That made sense. And so that told me it's even more authentic. But that setting, I've never seen a book set in Bahrain. So
no, same here. Yeah. And I challenge our listeners, if there's another spy book set in Bahrain, let us know. We would like to be corrected, but I don't think there is.
No.
And I'm not as well traveled as you, but I have to look at Bahrain on the map. Like I kind of knew where it was, but if I was on a quiz show, I wouldn't have got the exact location. So, and I love books like that, Jeff, where it's like, okay, where is it? And then I read up on the government, because I think what Alana did very well was writing about the differences between the royal family and those living in shanty towns, the poverty of Bahrain, which is something you never really see.
You don't, and the preconception that I took with me away from Kuwait was that, I kind of thought, I kind of compared Bahrain to Kuwait. Sorry if that is culturally offensive, but with my experience, Bahrain, like you said in the book, the royal family and how they controlled everything, and then there were all the shanty, just real despair. I got that from Kuwait. The royal family. Everyone, if you're Kuwaiti, chances are when I was over there, that's what I saw. You're rich and you sit around all day, and everyone else does all the work, and they're not really well off. So I made that comparison too. But yeah, no other books in Bahrain.
Well, I also want to take my hat off to Alana Berry, because she called her protagonist Shane, and there's not many Shanes in this. Plenty of Shanes in the cowboy world, but
Shane Collins. Collins. Yeah.
And she made him an alcoholic and a womanizer, so I'm not sure about all of that. But no, fantastic.
I think maybe
that's a great pick.
You guys may have gotten together and you kind of gave her a little background.
That's right. That's right. All right, swiftly moving on to pick number 2, sir.
Okay, out of left field. And I know a lot of our Spybrarians, in the community and in the groups, are from outside of America. So with having me on, first, thank you. I went through a lot of your Dead Drop 5 episodes, watched hours and hours of footage. So not a lot of Americans. So here you go. I've got a Yank recommendation for you, and I'll tell you how it fits. The book is called The Bitter Past, and it's by a new author, relatively new author, called Bruce Borges. It's a spy novel because it involves a Russian agent coming to the United States and going to the Nevada desert and working on the nuclear program in the 1950s. So not really popular overseas is Bruce, but this book was another one, and it came right after Peacock and the Sparrow for me in my reading. all of a sudden, sometimes it rains, it pours, and I'm like, the bitter past was amazing. It will make you laugh. It can make you cry, all the while telling a story about the world's first dirty bomb.
Right. Wow. I have no knowledge of this one whatsoever, so that's why I get scared of Dead Drop 5, because it always means I've hits the bank balance now, but that's good. So what year is this? What year is it set in?
It's a dual timeline. So it's set in the early 1950s, while they were doing nuclear bomb testing in the state of Nevada, or Nevada. Sorry, Nevada. And then it's set, the main character, the main protagonist, is a guy named Sheriff Porter Beck. And he's sheriff of this large county. And the story comes with someone from the federal government landing in his sandbox, starting to ask questions from something that they have information about that they're not giving him all the details about. But she's kind of hot, and so he plays along, and he has this amazing inner dialogue that Bruce has told me has gotten a few complaints from some readers, like, oh, he's just a pig. And again, it goes to the authenticity of who these characters are and how they come across on the page. I used to be a cop. Porter Beck is a cop's cop. You're gonna love this guy. And it starts right off with him meeting this female FBI agent, and who he's told is a female FBI agent, and all of a sudden the wheels start turning. And I'm sorry, it's true. And then the timeline shifts to what she's there to investigate, and what, by proxy, he's investigating with her, to the 1950s, to where the case really started. And it has to do with a Russian agent who got recruited, came to America, and sold himself as an American. Ended up getting a job as a security guard, low level, at one of the testing sites. Did a good job, got promoted, got more responsibility, got him in a position to do something really bad.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. And in the meantime, he's still living in America, so he's interacting with the community and finds himself a lady friend and settles down and falls in love and buys a house, all the things that a normal person would do. And then the timeline shifts back, and so it goes back and forth to the Sheriff Porter Beck and his sidekick, how they're trying to piece together what's happening today and how it connects to the 1950s. I'm a big fan of dual timelines. If it works well, you got to be able to see it coming together as a reader, but you don't want to be able to predict it. And I think Bruce Borges did a really good job putting those together.
Excellent. Well, I'm definitely going to add that to my wish list when I'm done after this chat. I am. No. This is what Dead Drop 5 is all about. And it's what your dossier is all about, and what Spybrary is all about, is putting quality reads on our radar. So never apologize for a good rec. It's I'm gonna go and get that one. I presume you've spoken to the author through your work, but if you could ask the author, or even I would say the main character, then what one question would it be? Without any spoilers, which I know is really difficult in the thriller space.
Like the wheels are turning. First off, to address your point, I know Bruce. I met him after I fell in love with the book, and I was at BoucherCon this last fall, and so I'm just kind of standing around on his phone, and I'm like, that's Bruce Borges. I've been dying to get him on the dossier, and so I just walked up, introduced myself, and he was there by himself. And so for the next 2 or 3 days, we spent a lot of time together. We text back and forth a little bit now. In fact, I've got a text stream with Alana Barry and him, and the three of us will share stuff, because Barry and Borges end up on the shelves together in some of my bookstores. And so I'll take a picture of both of their books together and send it to them. But anyways, the question I would ask is the protagonist, Sheriff Porter Beck, a cop's cop, sheriff in with a wide swath of land to cover. I would ask him, how much trouble have you gotten into with that inner monologue that you've got? Some of the things that you say, you see, and then you think, and then what did you say? How much does that get you in trouble? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Excellent. All right. Let's move on to pick number 3.
All right. Charm School by Nelson DeMille. I'm going to take it easy on you this time. I know you've read it. I know everyone in the community has read it, but I wanted to explain why I love it.
Go for it.
All right. So it is early 2000s, and I'm sitting, I call it the safe house, but it's my boss's basement apartment in between Heidelberg and Stuttgart, Germany. He was a retired Army, or a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel in the security forces, and he worked for, at that time, United States Africa Command in Stuttgart. He also worked and managed contracts for the government at U.S. Army Europe in Heidelberg, so he lived in the middle. And he said, "Jeff, come on over. I want to get you in the system." It was all geared toward getting me a job working in anti-terrorism and counterterrorism policy for U.S. Army Africa, U.S. Army Europe. So I'm in his apartment. First time in Germany since I was a young soldier. And this time I had no military restrictions. I could walk around, do whatever I wanted. So I'm in his basement, and the only time I had anything to do was at night when we got home or on the weekends. Now, his apartment, and this was about 2003, had no internet. Gasp. I didn't have a cell phone back then in 2003. He had no TV that I could watch because I wasn't fluent in German.
Right.
And so no TV, no internet, no phone. There were about a dozen books on the shelf. And I picked up a Vince Flynn book and went through that. And then I found Charm School. And it blew me away for a couple reasons. First off, when I was in the Army, I was a Russian intelligence analyst. So we studied Russia. We studied Russian vehicles. We studied Russian personnel, tactics, battlefield tactics, hierarchy, chain of command, all of that. So Charm School about Russia. And then the story. Are you kidding me? I mean, the nightmare scenario for deep mole inside cover agents to come from that to get dropped into, your assignment, brilliant. And I mean, anyone knows, the Americans was so huge. The CIA, David McCluskey did this study, or reported on this study that the CIA Alumni Association did about what was the best TV, and the Americans was by far the highest chosen. I think Tinker Tailor was second, but way down there. Yeah. So this is kind of like an early version of the Americans, where they learn stuff like that. And so it was the Russia element. It was the whole concept that was scary as anything. And then I was locked in a basement, and I had nothing to do but read this book. And it turned out to be one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life.
Wow, that's very high praise coming from you.
Well, I think everyone would agree that it's one of their favorites too. And I think someone mentioned it, or I know it came up on one of your previous podcasts, that it comes up periodically when you talk about classic spy novels. I mean, Russia, go on.
Got it. And what would you say to Nelson DeMille? If you could ask the author one question, what would it be?
This is a little off base too. I would ask Nelson DeMille, have you ever tried writing a book on a computer keypad? Because he handwrites everything out. And I know there are some writers who do that, and it just blows me away. Now, they would probably say, put words in their mouth, well, that's all I've ever known. That's how I started out. And I get that, but I can't imagine, writing that way. But about his writing the books, I would ask, I wish I'd asked a better question, because this is one of those questions that get asked to writers all the time, and it's so trite and so boring. But with this book, when you think about the timing of it and the originality of it, how did you come up with that? Because yeah, anyone who'd come up with it now is like, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense. But back then when he wrote it, like, whoa, he needs to work for the CIA's analytic red cell team and start coming up with ideas of other things that could potentially harm us.
For those who aren't familiar with the book, though, Jeff, how would you sum up the plot? How would you sum up?
Yeah, so there's an American, and he's on vacation in between. I don't know if it's a gap year or what, but he ends up going. He gets his own car, goes to Eastern Europe, and off he goes. And he's just driving, having the time of his life, enjoying Europe in this really, I forget the type of car, but it was like an American muscle car. And so you're caught up in that and all the Americana of it, but you're in Russia. And in the 80s, that was not a great place to be.
Yeah.
And he stumbles upon this place, this village, where it's all of a sudden, it's little America in the middle of, St. Petersburg or Gdansk or whatever, and gets caught up and wrangled up in what he saw, and then you're off to the races.
Brilliant.
Charm School. I mean, again, just the title. I finished a couple books myself. I'm working on getting them out there to agents and publishers. And coming up with a title is harder than I thought. Some people can just do it. Some people don't even try. Charm School, perfect.
Spot on, isn't it? It is spot on. Yeah. Okay, pick number 4.
Pick number 4, another classic spy novelist that's probably been mentioned on previous Dead Drop 5s, Daniel Silva. He's epic, he's prolific, and he's, what's the word, voluminous. I'm going with The Defector.
Where was, I'm putting you in the spot now.
Asking what number?
Yeah.
16, 17, maybe?
Okay.
It's further, or I think, it's further on. It's not, the English spot, or some of the, some of the early ones, which were good. But I think with Daniel Silva, there was a period in his timeline of books where Gabriel Allen, he really refined him, and his fiance, later wife, and then his art, which I love. And the biggest thing for me when I read the books, and it's still true now, are the settings. So,
for those who aren't familiar with Gabriel Allon, the main character, the main protagonist in Silva's books, what can you share with us about him?
Gabriel Allon is he worked for Mossad, Israeli Mossad, but he doesn't live in Israel. He lives in Italy, which I lived in Italy for a year, so immediately loved that.
Yeah. And
the other side of his coin, which I think draws in a lot of readers, and it really shows some humanity and can, again, sorry, we're going to teach you something, is the art. So he's an art restorer. So the thing that he ends up doing is and I don't want to get into why I stopped reading, but these books start out, or they did during a period of Gabriel Allon restoring this painting. It's beautiful. It's a Renaissance, or it's a Baroque, or no, it's not a Renaissance. He didn't do those. But it's like some great painting, and it's usually for, I don't know, the Pope. It's a Vatican painting of some sort, or someone super rich, and his beautiful half-clad Chiara is lounging on a bed, eating grapes, and then the view of Tuscany, and just this whole setting is just so amazing. And then he pulls out a 9mm and shoots somebody in the head.
Right.
So these books start out with that way, and then he gets a phone call, and he's off. I'm sorry, I have to leave this beautiful woman with wine and cheese and charcuterie all over. I have to leave this painting project I'm working on and go do something insane. I don't know when I'll be back. And he slaps the magazine in the magazine well, and off he goes to solve a lot of times the Vatican's problems. And in the Defector, what was so cool about the Defector for me is, again, sorry everybody, Russia. The Defector, he's dealing with a high-level military defector who he made a promise to, crap hits the fan, and Alan's off, and he's got to go save this guy. So, I love that.
So hands up, I haven't read any of Silva's yet. I've got a few on the shelf next door. And part of that is because some of the feeling or what I read about on Spybrary is some people really liked the early stuff, and then they felt they became very similar. Jason King even says that he felt he was Xeroxing, but he did say, I think it was either the last one or the last but one was a return to form, and he's really enjoying it.
I've heard that, and I kind of alluded to it earlier because I hate slamming, I wouldn't, on such a prolific author, but that's what got me away from that, is they were so formulaic. I couldn't write the chapters, but I could tell you how it would end up or how it would start. And like I said, the settings where he's painting, she's over there on the bed, somebody calls and off he goes. It just got too repetitive for me, and so I kind of stopped. And so I'm glad to hear that maybe things have changed. Pick up the latest, because man, I got caught up at the very beginning, and they were great, no question.
Yeah. And I'm with you.
Everyone's told him.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's taking that feedback. But then nonetheless, he's still shifted. He's sold a lot of books, and every bookshop I'm in, certainly in the US, not the UK as much, but in the US, I see Silva everywhere.
Which really surprises me because, the settings, like the Defector, Lake Como, Geneva, Zurich, Russia. I mean, does Europe not want to read about spy novels that take place in your backyard? I don't know. As an American, well, maybe they don't, because I've been to those places and I want to relive them. Maybe a lot of people are like, oh yeah, that's just down the road. We just hop on the train there. We're there. It's not that big deal. I want to hear about Los Angeles or what happens in Miami. I get it.
I'm not sure. I'd like to get to the bottom of that, because it's prolific here.
I hope my books are popular in Europe. I don't know. Someday.
Well, that's the good news about I.S. Berry. She's just got her UK publishing deal, so my fellow Brits will be able to pick that up in a bookshop. So,
hey, I heard you promise a book, one of her books. You were going to meet someone in Edinburgh, and you're like, I'm not going to throw this out there because everyone's going to ask me for a copy. Did you ever make that happen?
Do you know what? I didn't make that happen, because I ended up having to go for 6 weeks, and I just had so much stuff to pack for 6 weeks. And but what I did do is, on the way back, Charles Beaumont's book, A Spy Alone, I think I kept Charles going in book sales, because they were not available here. So I'm sorry, Martin, I didn't bring you your book, but they got other goodies. They got other Spybrary goodies. So, and they'll be there buying Alana's book when that comes out. Excellent. So that's Daniel Silva. Right. What question would you ask Daniel if you got the opportunity? Anything top of mind? Or is there a question you'd rather ask Gabriel Allen?
Ooh, see, this is why the Spybrary interviews are so cool. No one ever thinks about talking to a character. That's such a great question. I would ask Daniel Silva. Oh, see, potential dossier here. Listen, Daniel, just slide into my DMs, Mr. Silva, and we'll exchange. I'll give you some dossier questions. I would ask him, how long do you plan to write Gabriel Allen books, and has the temptation to write a standalone in another completely different storyline ever really struck?
Great question.
He's talented. And I think that's part of the problem. People maybe just got tired of Gabriel Allen, the same thing over and over. During that one slice of all of his books, was he going to go somewhere else? So because he's. But I do like that.
Yeah, but I do like that he's aged Gabriel Allen through the books, right? 'Cause I think he's 70 in the latest one, so he has aged him, which
a lot of
not
people
like a Bond book where he's.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Well, eventually Gabriel Allen's gonna retire. Then so let's come up with one of his replacements.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Pick number 5.
Pick number 5 blew me away. Because I was talking to my buddy, who some people have probably heard of. His name's Ryan Steck. He's the real book spy.
Yes.
We've been friends for a little while now, and he said one day, "Have you ever read Jason Matthews?"
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't, because in my reading career, there have been peaks and valleys, and I guess I just missed this. And I'm going with Red Sparrow, even though I love the other two. And I thought for sequels, they were extraordinarily well done. A lot of times you're just going to cash in on the storyline and, oh, it's half written anyways because I know the characters and the readers know the characters. I just got to come up with a good idea. No, they're good books, all 3 of them. And when I finished the 3rd one, I was deflated because I knew there would be no more. And that's because, unfortunately, tragically, Jason Matthews passed on. So, I'm sorry for his family, but, we're part of that family too, and we got nothing left. So, Red Sparrow, it's funny. I watched the movie years ago when it came out. Wasn't crazy about it. And like, whatever. Got the book. Mind-blowing. And why it's mind-blowing to me is the relationship between Dominic Igorova and Nate Nash. So Igorova is the Red Sparrow. She's what we refer to as the honey trap. So the Russians may or may not believe, which they did. They had a team of hot Russian babes, who would seduce nerds like oh yeah, here I am. I'm a little intelligent analyst in Germany, and here comes this this Russian babe. So that's who Igorova is, and Nate Nash is the CIA guy working again a high level source in Russia. The dude is senior military general, and if you can get one of those guys, great. And the thing I loved about Nate Nash's recruitment was it wasn't like, hey, we're going to give you money, you're going to get some information. It's like this exchange. No, it's not like that. I mean, spies spy for 4 reasons: money, ideology, compromise, and ego. That's it. That's why spies spy. And so money is just, like I said, it's just a exchange. Knock that out. Ideology. Now that's where it gets interesting. If you're a Russian general or an American general and you don't like your president, guess what? No amount of money is going to make a difference. I'm going to just give this to you. And that's what's interesting. It's not so easy as to just walk up to somebody and say, here's some money, give me some intel. It's not how it works. They develop these relationships, just like when the FBI interviewed Saddam Hussein after he was captured. His main interrogator ended up, you get that whole syndrome of like, you're not friends because it's Saddam Hussein, but it's American and Russians. Hey, we're kind of enemies, but in the end, they develop a relationship, and it all comes down, Shane, to the fact that we're all human, and we all have more in common together than we don't. Mm-hmm. And so you see that life lesson in a fiction novel of East versus West, and they come together, and it's not for some exchange of money, or I blackmailed you, and so now it's compromise, or ego. No one wants that. So ideology. That's what's really neat about that. Anyways, so Igorova and Nate Nash, of course, they end up getting together, and they're not supposed to, but they do, and then they're not supposed to, but they do. But the other thing about this that reminded me so much of The Peacock and the Sparrow by Lana Berry is the relationship, and that's just like Shane Collins had with his female counterpart in the book. That relationship really cultivated together and had ups and downs. It wasn't like some romantic la la la, we're all together and then we got to do this. No, they had ups and downs. And so with Red Sparrow, it was tough. But the other thing is how determined she was. How Jason Matthews wrote her to be so tough and at the same time so demoralized for what she had to go through and that kind of training and the things she had to do. Great characters, and I still feel like I know Agorva and Nate Nash, and and Nash's supervisors, and that's the other thing. Barry in her book had a great outline of the relationships with Shane Collins and his boss's boss, and his mentors and all that. Nate Nash is the same thing. It's different, but it really develops those characters in a way that make you think, oh wow, so that's how it is. Oh, this is really interesting. I can see that, and it's all so plausible. And you got to suspend reality here and there, of course, but if you can walk away saying, I miss that person, that's something.
Yeah. It's been a few years since I've read it, and the thing I remember the most of it was the tradecraft. And obviously, again, with Matthew's background, it felt real. And you've lived this life, Jeff, right? Most of us, the vast majority of Spybrary haven't. That's why we read spy fiction, right? And the odd non-fiction as well, to get a glimpse into that world. But it just seemed very realistic to me.
Absolutely. And just a Peacock, just seems so real. Especially, the tradecraft in Red Sparrow, with especially all the surveillance detection and are you clean and all the process. It really shows you that, just like being a cop and you're on a stakeout, it's not Miami Vice, okay? You're not Don Johnson. These things suck. And, I've got to get to a meet and it's raining. Oh, great. And then I think maybe there's someone behind me. So you've got to do all these things. It's not easy. It's not glamorous. It's not glorious, except for Nate Nash, who ends up with Agorva. So I guess there's a payoff for him. Not for us.
Yeah. I hear you. No, that's some really good picks there. I love that you've picked two former CIA officers. I love the Russian theme here as well. I know many of us are interested and fascinated by that, so by that theater. So some great picks here. But also, you're behind the curtain, but your handler, because you're doing such a good job, your handler's allowed you a few luxury items. And the first one up is a piece of music. You're allowed a song or a CD or an album, whatever you like. What would that be, Jeff?
I love music. I write to music. We went to a concert. My wife and I went to a concert last night. Music for my dead drop is John Barry, The Collection. You look it up on Amazon. It's a 4-disc set. And John Barry did a metric ton of music for the Bond series from the very beginning. He did From Russia with Love, which I'm going to slip this in there. My favorite Bond movie. And I know everyone's talking about it in Spybrary. Huh?
What's your favorite Bond book?
I got to go with that, too. It's my Russia thing. Yeah, it's the Russia thing. But he did so many. Thunderball, You'll Live Twice, Magic Secret Service. Yes. I could go down there. But he also did Out of Africa, Dances with Wolves, Somewhere in Time. Those scores and that music is just so thrilling. It's inspiring, especially for me, having that play in the background. Yeah. It takes me to a place. Some people need silence, and I ask this on every dossier. Every dossier has about 5 questions, and they're all custom and they're curated specifically for that writer or one of their books. But I always ask that. What's your writing setting? Is it music? Is it silence or whatever? Because I'm just curious because it plays such a big part for me. So, I want John Barry's Collection.
Fantastic. Good choice. You're also allowed a bottle of something. What would you request?
I've got it on the shelf. I went for my 50th to Scotland and went to the Highlands and went to Glen.
Right.
And I'm getting a bottle of 15. If my handler doesn't leave a bottle of 15 in my dead drop, I'm going to be pretty disappointed. Sorry. Need Glen 15.
Excellent. That's what I've never tasted, so I'll have to look out for that one. What about a luxury item?
I want a loaded Sky TV box with unlimited coverage of every channel that can be broadcast on Sky TV. And yeah, it's HD, DVR, I want the works. And there's a reason for that. I lived in Germany for 5 years, and I was able to get American TV, which everyone will tell you sucked. It's terrible. I think the statute of limitations are gone on this. I paid somebody. Somebody brought me a Sky TV box, and I watched me some Sky TV. So yeah, that would be luxury for me right there.
That's a great answer.
I would watch the Americans and Berlin Station.
Yes. I liked season 1 of Berlin Station. The other two, the second one wasn't so bad. Third one went off a bit for me, but I did like season 1. I thought it was very well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What about, you can call any spy, living or dead, fiction, non-fiction, for your exfiltration. Who are you calling?
All right. I'm a big Vince Flynn fan. I started at book 1, read Term Limits. Everybody knows Vince Flynn's guy is Mitch Rapp.
Yes.
Term Limits was Scott Coleman. It was Vince's first. It was Vince's first book, and Scott Coleman is in the other books as, you know, this kick-ass sidekick who can make everything happen for Mitch. But that book, especially Term Limits, and Scott Coleman just made me, it was at a time in my life where I needed to get back into reading more.
Yeah.
And again, that was another one of those books where I was stuck overseas, didn't have anything. And I read Term Limits. I'm stuck. I'm hooked. And so Scott Coleman, I want Scott Coleman coming after me for a book. And I'm going to throw a curveball for you here. I'm going to go movie as well, because we got a book and a movie, and you're not going to believe who's coming for me. Naomi Harris as Moneypenny.
Right.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you're going to get Naomi Harris.
She can aim down on you. She can hit you, and she can give you a pretty close shave.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. Here's a question for you, right? Going back to Vince Flynn.
Yeah.
I'm always told well, let me ask you this. So if someone hasn't read any of his stuff before, what's the one book they should read of his? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot here. These were not sent to Jeff in advance.
No. I always say Term Limits, but you've got to read. You've got to have a Mitch Rapp book in there, and this is where if you have Ryan Stecca on, he's the rapologist. I mean, he is. There's a Twitter page called the Rapologist, and it's him.
Yeah.
I have to go with American Assassin.
Yeah. That's the one I've got here, because I haven't read any of them, so I've got it here, but it's just getting to it. You know what these to-be-read pals are like. But that's what it's been winking at me for a long time. You know,
I'm gonna tip my hat to Kyle Mills too. You know, he went out with a bang with Code Red, and I think if you're writing for a franchise series and you know this is your last one, you're gonna pull everything out. And I think he did on Code Red. So I usually wouldn't recommend anyone starting with the last book, you know, but if you're looking for, you know, a bang, you know, that's in the series. Vince didn't write it, obviously, but it's still a good Mitch Rapp. I think you need a good Mitch Rapp. No doubt.
Got it. Okay. Excellent. Out of the 5 picks today, let's say you can only grab one before you're going to run before the Vopos burst through the door. Which one would you grab?
Whew, that is so hard. I mean, I love my writers. I love my dossier people, but I'm going with Jason Matthews. I'm going with Red Sparrow. Like you said, the authenticity, the trade craft. You said the trade craft. That's a masterclass right there in tradecraft fiction. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and reread that this year. Excellent. And who would you like to hear next on Dead Drop 5? Whose answers would you most like to hear on this?
I think I've got a great guy. His name is Adam Sykes. Adam Sykes is a super intelligent guy. I mean, how's this go? He's forgotten more than I know.
Mm-hmm.
He's a former Marine. If you can call it former, they're always a Marine. He's a former CIA paramilitary officer.
Wow.
And he wrote a book called Landslide. Came out in paperback last fall. I got it. Amazing. Shocked. I wrote him. I'm like, dude, got to get you on the dossier. I love this book. And he has a new one coming out. Don't hate me, Adam. April 16th, maybe. It's coming out this year. It's called The Underhanded. I think it would be great to have him on because he's a lot smarter than me. He will give you good answers. He's thoughtful.
You've given us good answers. Come on. You've given me, like, you know, my local bookshop's going to love you when I try and find some of these.
No, so, Adam Sykes, can't beat it. Yeah, and he's writing about an MI6 officer. So there you go.
There we go. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for coming and sharing some of your favorites with us today, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Where can people find you online? Where can they follow you? Where can they read the dossier?
They can read the dossier at thewritersdossier.com or just go to my website, jeffcircle.com. But I'm big on X, that platform, Jeff_Circle. Go to the Spybrary. Go to all your people can go to your page. I know you follow me. And then I'm on Instagram and Facebook too, but I interact. I find X really easy to have conversations. I don't know.
Yes.
It's me. Been doing it for a while. So yeah, but read the interviews. I mean, follow me, whatever, but go to the website, read the interviews because like I said, they're cool interviews and everyone loves it. I've never been turned down except way early. And it was a guy who wasn't allowed to say anything because it was a work he was working on. But got some great stuff, and I've got some big ones coming.
Well, you're doing a good job. You're, acting as their marketing arm. And as we know, vast majority of authors, they have to do all the marketing themselves pretty much. So, both yourselves, the dossier, us at Spybrary, Ryan's work at Real Book Spy, we've got our mission. And while some of us may subscribe to different sides of that aisle of the genre, we're helping these authors out. So I'm glad that they're up for coming on the dossier, as they are for coming on this podcast. It's a lot to ask. They're busy people, and we want them writing books, right? It's important.
Oh, I get that. I got a dossier answers back 5 minutes before we went on, and the first thing, some Connor Sullivan, first thing he said was, "I'm sorry, I'm late." I'm like, "Are you kidding? I can't even believe you bothered. So thank you." So thank you for that. His is coming out. But I will contact Adam and have him make sure you guys get together. Like I said, guy's amazing.
Excellent. I will add all of Jeff's details to our show notes, which you can find at spybrary.com/227. Do follow him and do get on the dossier. And Jeff, thanks a million for coming on Spybrary.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun. DD5 is awesome.